Hey, it's Marco from Craft Coffee Spot. I think one of the harder questions to ask when you're getting an entry-level espresso machine is, should you get an espresso machine with a grinder, or should you get an espresso machine and a separate grinder? So to answer that, today I want to compare the Breville Barista Express against the Breville Bambino and a couple standalone grinders. And I'll talk about the trade-offs of each combination here. So first, let's just make an espresso with the Barista Express, and you just see how this works as an integrated model. So I think what stands out about this is just how easy it is to use. All you have to do is lock in the portafilter, press it in, and it'll grind and make a time-based dose. Then you just have to tamp it, lock it into the brew head, and push the button to brew the espresso. Okay. About 18 grams in, 38 grams out, about 30 seconds. Give it a taste. It tastes like an espresso. A little dark, probably extracted a little long, some bitterness, but generally good chocolate notes, good syrupy taste. And we'll use this as the baseline to compare against the Bambino and the other grinders. Okay, so now let's compare this against the Breville Bambino and the Baratza Encore ESP. The Baratza Encore is a great entry-level workhorse. And what's even better about the ESP model is it has extra fine grind settings for espresso. Then you have regular grind settings that go coarse all the way up to French press. So it's an excellent all-in-one grinder. And also it comes with this nice little dosing cup that actually fits a Breville portafilter. So let's make an espresso with this. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Baratza Encore is there is no time-based dosing. You're either turning it on or you're turning it off. So I'm just going to give one single dose in there and make sure we get the exact amount. Like I said, this fits really nicely. Okay, so this was also 18 grams in and about 37.5 grams out, so a little bit of a shorter shot, and it did take a little longer. But let's taste it. Honestly, it's pretty similar to the Breville Barista Express. It's a little bit smoother. There's not quite as much sourness or sharpness, and maybe a little more sweetness too, but honestly, more or less the same. I think if I ground just a little finer on the Barista Express, it would have been pretty similar to this. But I think the real plus of this combination right here is that the Baratza Encore ESP only costs $200, and the Bambino costs about $300 as of this filming. So the $500 combination here is a lot less expensive than the Barista Express, which is about $750. So you're getting maybe the same or a little bit better quality and a lot lower price. And on top of that, you can use this Baratza Encore for any brewing method from espresso all the way up to French press. Now let's compare the Breville Bambino with the DF64. This is a true espresso grinder, and it has larger, flat 64mm burrs with a really powerful motor. And what that means is you just get a really consistent grind size. And so there's very few clumps, a lot fluffier. And this collar right here is stepless. So you don't have a kind of a 2 or 3 setting. You essentially have infinite settings as you twist this dial. So you can really dial in your espresso shot, and this is a really excellent grinder. It also has a bellow on top, so you can kind of force out the old grounds. There's no stale coffee in the chamber. Now, the hard part is it's definitely not designed for a Breville 54mm portafilter. So I have to use a dosing funnel to make this easier. So yet again, we're about 18 grams in. This time it was about 38 grams out, and it took 29 seconds. It's tasted. Okay, so I really like this. This is now 1, extremely smooth, 2, balanced, and 3, you get a really nice acidity and sweetness out of it. I'm seeing a lot more flavor out of this one. It's got the chocolate nose, but it's also balanced by almost like an apple / cherry sweetness on it too. And so you just get a lot more expression of the flavor nose without any of the weird highs and lows that you can get with espresso from being too bitter or too sour. And that just speaks to, you got bigger burrs, flat burrs, which is a more consistent grind size. And then it just comes out all fluffier. Remember, I'm not using a WDT on this, so you get a more consistent, even puck right there. And honestly, that's what you get for getting a true espresso grinder. And that's really the pitch on why you can get better quality if you get a separate standalone grinder. Now, this DF64 costs about $350 to $400, which, yes, is more expensive than the espresso machine. But then again, that's always a common saying in the coffee world, is you should spend more on your grinder than you do on your machine. But this is actually still a pretty good value for the size of the burrs and the quality you get. It's also being redesigned as I speak, as this filming, so you can find a newer model online, and I'll make sure I link to that below. Now, the harder part is it's not as easy to use because it is not designed for the Breville portafilter like a lot of grinders out there. But it's still a pretty good value for a true espresso grinder. Now, speaking of value, you can also get a manual grinder like this Onesie J Max, and you can get a real bargain because this is still $200, and honestly, the flavor profile comes very close to the DF64. This is designed for espresso with lots of very fine grind settings and small adjustments. Like I said, I really like it, and it's great if you don't mind using the hand crank every morning. Also, this is definitely not going to fit the Breville portafilter, so it will make more of a mess. But if you want another, even better option, I think, is the Onesie X Pro, which I've also been testing too, and it's actually a little cheaper than this with, I think, a little more brightness in the flavor profile. So right now, it sounds like getting a Bambino and a separate grinder is the clear winner. You can get at least the same quality. You can get a lot of value out there because the Bambino is just such a bargain. You also get a lot more optionality because you can choose different grinders. There are a lot of different espresso grinders out there. You actually find more that we've looked at on Craft Coffee Spot. And you can even get a different espresso machine like the Bambino Plus if you want automatic milk frothing. So yeah, it seems like on value and quality, you should be choosing this. But I want to go back and give a defense of the Barista Express and all the integrated grinder models out there. And it really comes down to one important feature that I think gets overlooked, and that is convenience. This is just a lot easier to use. To not be fooled by the video editing, but it took a lot of work to dial these in before I came to the studio and to brew these espressos. It's going to be a lot higher learning curve if you have a separate grinder that you have to dial in and get used to that's not designed for the espresso machine. Meanwhile, the Barista Express and the Barista Pro or the Barista Express Impress, Breville has designed these to be very easy to use. It fits the portafilter. The grind sizes are generally set for the brew head. And it's just a lot easier if you're getting started. I think if you're new to espresso, keep in mind there's a long learning curve to being good at this. And so having a machine that's easier to use will really allow you to grow into that. There are also little features I think get overlooked. Like, for example, having your portafilter above the drip tray. When grounds fall out, you'll just have less of a mess. And there's even just like the fact that you only need one outlet with the Barista Express versus 2 outlets with this separate grinder. If you look at my kitchen, I currently have an espresso machine, 2 grinders, and a kettle all plugged into the same outlet, which is a bit of a mess, to say the least. And then most of these separate grinders are not designed for the Breville 54mm portafilter like this DF64. So if you are just getting started, I think these hybrid machines are a great option. Now, if you've already been making espresso for a while and you're looking to upgrade, I would really recommend looking at this DF64. You should upgrade your grinder before the espresso machine because you will notice a really big difference. And maybe if you have the tenacity and patience to learn a separate grinder and espresso machine, you can get a great bargain out there by buying these standalone. You can get a lot more optionality to it. So either way, I think they're both good options. It really just depends on you. I think if you're a beginner, I would consider these integrated grinder models. If you're experienced, maybe look at getting a grinder upgrade before an espresso machine upgrade. I'll have all these products listed on our blog and in the description below, so you can find them. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. And as always, I hope this video helped. If it did help you, consider giving this video a like, as it really supports our channel. And as always, subscribe to see our future videos.